Hello Assassins, Gargoodon here, the English voice narrator for the Assassin's Creed Univers channel. Here on the AC Univers channel, we had the chance to interview Aymar Azaizia, head of content at Ubisoft Montreal on Assassin's Creed. And because the interview is in French, I'm here to do a recap in English of the most interesting things we learned for you people. So, concerning the Assassin's Creed movie, we learned that Maria isn't an ancestor of Callum Lynch, meaning that Aguilar and Maria never had a child. We may see more content involving Aguilar and possibly Maria too in the future. We also have hints to the Assassins in upcoming products. Aymar doesn't think Michael Fassbender would be interested in doing voice acting for Assassin's Creed as he is a super busy man, meaning that we surely won't see him in upcoming games, but he might reappear in comics or novels if they feel like it could improve the story. The way the apple works in the movie was a bit confusing, so he told us that in fact. The apple doesn't contain a gene and has nothing to do with violence. In fact, he doesn't like the whole point about men and violence in the movie. The apple actually contains the original genetic code of the members of the first civilization, which allowed them to create humans. So, if the Templars had this apple, they could literally change their own human genome and share genes with members of the first civilization to control mankind. We learned that a lot of fans are still wondering who is the mysterious person who visited the graves of both Lucy Stillman and Daniel Cross. Well, Aymar told us that we may have more info on that soon, but they like to keep some mystery around some aspects of Assassin's Creed. As you may have heard, Desmond's son was potentially presented in the latest comic series Assassin's Creed Uprising. Well, Aymar confirmed us that it was truly Desmond's son. The idea of developing this character didn't come from them, but from the writer of the series. We will learn about the character in the upcoming issues, but he may also suddenly disappear, so it's not sure that he will be in the next Assassin's Creed game. Talking about Desmond, he confirmed that he really was dead, but his consciousness along with Clay's lies somewhere in the grave. So we will never see these two characters again in their physical form, but maybe in the future we will get to know more about the Grey and hear news from them, and see those two characters reappear. Both the Assassin's Creed movie and Assassin's Creed Heresy introduced new evolution of the Animus. Aymar told us that in the upcoming Assassin's Creed stories we would see more of these physical Animus consoles. Again, he explained that having a more physical device would help the subject to be more synchronized, but at the same time the risk of suffering from the bleeding effect is much higher. We talked about the famous boxes. You know, the boxes. There are indeed different boxes in the Assassin's Creed universe, and while it was originally a simple MacGuffin, they now have an idea on what it contains. We also talked a little bit about the Animus, and he reminded us that it was a simulation, meaning that the Animus recreates a memory thanks to a database. This database is composed of both your DNA and the historical facts that are known. So since it's a simulation, as long as you do something possible, it's fine. Like you can kill a random guard, because it's something that may have happened, and this brings us to the idea that what you see in the Animus is not always the truth, because again, it's a simulation. So, the more info you have in your database, the more the memory is close to what really happened. We learned that when asked if we would see more of Connor, Arno, or the Fry twins, Aymar said that it was possible. Ezio's story was concluded with Transmedia and Univers, so there is still room for these characters. The novel Assassin's Creed Heresy is based on the story of Joan of Arc, a famous French historical figure that we've already seen in the puzzle glyphs of Subject 16 in Assassin's Creed 2. So, when asked if we could have more stories on the famous historical figures we've seen in the puzzles and how they used the pieces of Eden, Aymar said that it was something that would really be interesting to do. We just talked about Desmond's son and how he was introduced in the comics. So, we talked with Aymar about how important the Transmedia now was in Assassin's Creed and that some fans thought that it was unfair to develop the MD in the comics and not in the games. Basically, he told us that the Transmedia was a great way to explore what they couldn't do in games, and while he regrets that they didn't have a proper mundane Unity and Syndicate, he explained that they have heard the fans and understood from their mistakes. He also said that you could play the next Assassin's Creed game even if you haven't bought or read the new comics. And finally, we talked about Assassin's Creed in general. In the Assassin's Creed series, we've seen a lot of characters changing side, from Assassins to Templars, Shay, Duncan Walpole. So, we asked him if we could see the opposite, more stories with Templars becoming Assassins, and he would love to see that, especially since over the years we've moved from a very Manichean conflict with the Assassins being the good guys and the Templars being the villains, but now both factions are more in the grey area, so it could be really interesting. Also, in most of the Assassin's Creed games, the purpose of the Assassins was to stop the Templars from doing whatever they had planned, nothing more. So the writers are really trying to give real goals to the Assassins. You can see that in the comics, but we will see more of that in future stories. Whether it's in the books or the games, we will learn more about the first civilization. He said that there are still a lot to learn from them and from the lore in general, and that we will have new stuff to decrypt. Again, on the First Civilization, we asked him if they thought about creating short playable memories during the era of the First Civilization, and it's something they thought about. They tried to imagine how it could look, etc., so maybe it will happen in the future. And finally, we asked them if they knew when and how Assassin's Creed was going to end. And while they have a few ideas on how it is going to end, it's not written on paper yet and they don't know when. But they know when and how Juno's storyline will end. So that's it for the main info we've gathered from Aymar Azaizia. We want to thank Aymar for his time and for answering some of your questions. We hope you've learned some cool stuff, and eventually we'll do more interviews with developers from Ubisoft in the near future. Until then, take care, Assassins.